G'day, so welcome to the third step. This is reading the landscape. And I want to work through how I do that, or how I did that in one particular case, so that you can use that as a case study. There'll also be a text. There's a text to download with all the information there, so that'll just support this video. Reading the landscape. So we talk about change journeys. And like on any journey, it's really great to have some preparation before you get into it. Before you start, you've got to have a bit of an idea about where you want to end up, but also how to get there. And what are the obstacles that could be in the way? What are the opportunities, the milestones you might travel on this journey? What's the landscape look like? Are there hills? Are there valleys? Who's in the game? Who are the people that are going to travel with you? So I like to have some sense of this landscape before I get started. Now, the reality is, you're really not going to know great detail until you actually start on the journey. It's like any journey. You can plan as much as you like, and as soon as you take the first step, the plan goes out the window. But because you've done the plan, you're better prepared for those wobbles or those changes that come along. Never ever will you have a journey that goes perfectly according to your plan. But it's a good idea to have a bit of a sense about where you're going, who's on the journey, what the landscape looks like before you start. And I talk about mapping out the journey. And so what I wanted to do here is to give you an example of one of the change journeys, the map that I made of the change journey before I got started. And of course, as the journey unfolded, I learned so much more. So I'm able to draw this map a lot more detailed now than what I was at the start. So I want to talk about change in the palm oil sector. One of the major projects that I was involved in my work over the last 25 years is helping transform the palm oil sector away from deforestation. I worked with Nestle in 2010 to sign the world's first no deforestation commitment. That led to Indonesia's largest and the world's second largest palm oil company making their own no deforestation commitment. The world's largest integrated pulp and paper company making a no deforestation commitment. And then finally in December 2013, the world's largest palm oil company making a no deforestation commitment. So there's a lot of change journeys there, a lot of processes, a lot of meetings, and there's a lot of players in those games. So getting your head around what that looks like. And I mentioned the pulp and paper company. I mentioned them. They're not in the palm oil sector, obviously, but we learned a lot through the journey with them. So I wanted to give you a bit of a picture of the map that I made as I was going through that journey. So we're going to start down here at the bottom. You have to excuse my drawing. It's always a bit ropey. But we start down here at the bottom with palm oil plantations. Now, so we'll put a few there. Now, the interesting thing, of course, with palm oil plantations is most of them in places like Indonesia, Malaysia, also in Latin America, they're established on land that used to be forests. Not completely, but this is where the deforestation problem came, chopping down natural forests to plant palm oil. And the world was a bit concerned about this as we were losing so many forests. So we were looking at, okay, how do we help companies establish palm oil plantations without chopping down forests? So to go on that change journey, we needed to understand the players in the game. So here we go. So this is a typical palm oil supply chain. So you've got the palm oil plantations, and then fruits from the plantations come into what's called a mill. And the mill is often owned by the same company as the palm oil plantation, but they will pay money to the palm oil plantation. And this could be a small, medium-sized company or large company, and it could also be smallholder farmers. So this is the mill. And the mill squeezes the fruit and gets the oil out, which is then sent on to a bigger factory, which is a refinery, and they pay so this gets the oil, and they pay money to the mill. Okay? The refinery then sends, that's my dog wanting to get in. We won't stop the video for that. He always likes to be present. Sorry about that. Thank you, Finn. Thank you, mate. Just a little bit of, that's what I said about the change journey often unfolding in ways that are unexpected. Anyway, so the refinery then sends the oil onto brands. So this could be a food company, Nestle, Ferrero, any of these companies that use palm oil in the food products, or it could be a cosmetics company, shampoos, all sorts of things contain palm oil. And of course, they pay money. So this is the refined oil. They then make their own products, and they can sell it on to... Hey, stop that. It's really disturbing. They then sell that onto shops, could be supermarkets. They pay money, so this could be a product. And they, of course, sell it to us as consumers, mums and dads and kids. So this is the palm oil supply chain. Now, it's not as simple as that, and this is where the complexity in mapping out the landscape really helps, okay? Because we've got other players in the game. So here, between the palm oil plantation and the mill, we often get traders and middlemen, and often they buy and sell, and move it along together. So I draw them here. Often also between the mill and the refiner, you have traders, okay? Then the refiners sell it to the brands on here, but you get logistics people in here, just shipping companies in here. So we're already getting more complexity, okay? But it goes further. So let's think about the palm oil plantation. The palm oil plantation, you could have companies. So let's put here businesses. But who owns? This is making noise too. This is a bit annoying. Who owns the palm oil plantation? So you've got the businesses, but you also have small farmers. You have small farmers. Okay, but they have to abide by laws. And which laws? Well, it depends on which country they're in. So you can have here different layers. You can have local district laws, regional government with its laws, and of course national government with its laws. So then you've got a whole range of different stakeholders right there. The mills are always in the same place, so they're also, but they will have the local, regional and national laws that govern the operation of a factory. The refineries sometimes are in the same country, often not. So in Indonesia's case, for example, they do have refineries there, and in Malaysia they have refineries there, but they also have refineries in Singapore. So you can have a completely different government jurisdiction there. So these are all governments. Noises. Just try and fix that. That's really getting in the way. Why is it doing that? Sorry about that. So governments. Also down here you have workers. So you have people working in the plantations. Now, in these countries, Malaysia in particular, you have a lot of migrant workers. So these are people that are not from Indonesia, not from Malaysia, but they come in perhaps from Bangladesh, from the Philippines, from Nepal, and before they get there, there are recruitment agencies, recruitment companies. And so you have other governments, you might have Bangladesh, you might have Nepal, you might have the Philippines, other countries, going through recruitment companies and bringing the people here to there. You have local communities living beside the plantations, and they're worried in particular about pollution. They're worried about getting jobs as well, but they're also worried about pollution. Okay. On top of that, as I said, these plantations are often established on old forest land. Let's have a different colour. Here we go. You can have here NGOs, non-government organisations, and these NGOs can be concerned for the workers, for example, and the communities, the workers and the communities, or they could be concerned about the environment. And they are linked often to international NGOs who give them money, give them support. They're also often linked to donors who give them money and give them support. Okay. Here you also have workers. So you have here in every country workers and different laws. Okay. You have lobby groups for the industry. You have lobby groups. You have certification schemes. All with different agendas, different needs, different desires, different aspirations. Sitting up here, you have banks. Okay, you have banks. They give money to everyone, but in different countries. So these banks could be in Asia, they could be in Indonesia, for example, where the mills and the plantations are. They could be in Singapore, giving money to them. They'll, for example, here in Europe or the US, anywhere where they're giving money to the brands. So they've got their own agendas. The international NGOs also interact with our friends in the press. So the NGOs give information to the press, who sometimes give information to the people through the media, but more often than not they attack the supermarkets, they attack the brands for being involved in bad practices down here. So this is just some of the complexity. We should mention we also have, of course, governments up here. Here in Europe, we have the national governments, but we also have the European Commission with all sorts of rules and regulations on environmental destruction or on trade promotion. So all of this is starting to look like a bit of a mess, right? Okay. When I look at this, I'm starting to think to myself, okay, who wants change? Who wants change in this situation? Well, up here in Europe, for example, the NGOs, the international NGOs, a lot of the consumers are concerned about deforestation. Okay, so they want down here at the far end of that supply chain in faraway Indonesia, Malaysia, in Africa and Latin America, they don't want the palm oil companies or the small farmers chopping down forests to establish palm oil plantations. But they want to establish palm oil plantations because it gives them money, particularly smallholder farmers. This is a great way for them to have income. And the government out there in Indonesia are saying, hold on a second, if you don't use palm oil, how can we have agricultural development here and lift our people out of poverty? This is a key factor about palm oil is that, yes, it has been involved in a lot of deforestation, but at the same time, it's lifted tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. It's made a lot of wealth for companies as well, but let's not forget that there's millions of workers out there who have salary, there's farmers who are making income, kids are going to school, they've got hospitals when they get ill because of the palm oil industry. So when we are here in Europe worrying about deforestation, in those developing countries, they're worried about helping people out of poverty. So the two things don't meet well together, right? So we're starting to get that picture of this is a bit complex. As I say, you've got the traders, you've got the companies, everyone's making a lot of money here. And so the question that when I came to look at the palm oil industry is like, okay, who can we work with here? The international NGOs are making a big noise here in Europe. There's local NGOs out there. What are those NGOs' relationships with the government, for example? Are there people in the government who are concerned about the deforestation? Maybe you have the Forest Ministry, you have the Environment Ministry. But of course, there's also the Finance and Trade Ministries. They want to see economic development. Who's more powerful? Where does the power sit? Who wants change? Who doesn't want change? How far are they prepared to go to see change? Could there be some accommodation where, okay, we stop deforestation here, but we let deforestation go on there? So this is the map that I drew. There's more complexity here that I haven't got to, but you're already starting to see just how complex these change journeys can be. Now, the good news is here that there were these no deforestation commitments signed. Companies did come to the table and they did exclude deforestation from their supply chain. But still we're losing forests because the problem has moved elsewhere. We were working with companies. Now a lot of the deforestation is happening because smallholder farmers are clearing land. So we've got to work with the smallholder farmers too. The key message out of all of this is that change really is the science and the art of dancing with other people. So we've got to understand who the people are in the game, what are their aspirations, what are their motivations, who's got the power, what does that landscape look like? Once we understand that, we can start engaging in the landscape and travelling that change journey, hopefully to a great outcome. Hope that's helpful.